Hey there, it's me again, Michelle, and welcome back to the Canadian History, a Chronology channel. Today's episode, number 33, is about Canada's continued war with the United States. This will be part 3 of this series on the War of 1812. Now, before we start, let's take a quick moment to review what we saw and heard in the last episode, whose focus was on Upper Canada. We saw that the Americans were poorly organized, and that Isaac Brock teamed up with native allies led by Shawnee chief Tecumseh. That the Americans surrendered Mackinac Island, Detroit, and Fort Dearborn, present-day Chicago. We also saw that Brock died at the Battle of Queenston Heights, and that Tecumseh died a year later at Moraviantown, and that the Americans successfully took York, present-day Toronto, in the spring of 1813. And then we met Laura Secord, the heroine of the War of 1812 in Upper Canada. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at the war in Lower Canada now and how the Americans approached that objective. Although the War of 1812 was mostly fought in Upper Canada, the Americans did also invade Lower Canada in the fall of 1813. The Americans came at Montreal from two sides, north from New York, along Lake Champlain and the Chateauguay River, and from the west, along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. The good news is that the Americans failed in both attacks. The first attack, the Battle of Chateauguay on October 25, 1813, can be seen as a true Canadian victory as the British played no part in it. Charles de Salaberry led a band of French Canadians and some English Canadians and Mohawk allies in a woodland ambush. He barricaded on a ravine overlooking the Chateauguay River and successfully turned back an invasion force of 4,000. The second attack was more the European-style battle of soldiers lining up. The Battle of Chrysler's Farm on November 11, 1813, near present-day Cornwall, Ontario, was a failure for the Americans as they could not break through the Canadian lines and had to retreat. Then, in August of 1814, as revenge for what the Americans did to York, the British captured and burned Washington, D.C., including the president's own residence. And when it was rebuilt, it was painted white to hide any scorch marks and has since been dubbed the White House. The British then attacked Plattsburgh on September 11, 1814, but failed and had to retreat. On Christmas Eve, December 24, 1814, in the Belgian city of Ghent, the Treaty of Ghent was signed between Great Britain and the United States, ending the War of 1812. So who won the War of 1812 anyways? Well, on the battlefield, the Americans lost, but they did win politically. The treaty returned territories won by Great Britain back to the original American borders, and the U.S. was given free rein in the West. Britain's First Nation allies and Canadians were left out of any negotiations. Historian Bruce Hutchison probably said it best when he stated, "The United States had lost a war and won a conference." Now the Americans began to extend their territories into Indian Territory, lands that the British claimed to be native lands. The Americans then began a war of extermination and displacement as they forcibly removed natives from the Ohio Valley. Natives were to be settled, civilized, and assimilated into white society as either farmers or as wards of the state. So, the final score in the War of 1812's, the Americans won, the Canadians broke even, and the First Nations lost. After this, two agreements between the British and the Americans followed. The Rush-Bagot Agreement in 1817 limited naval armaments on the Great Lakes, leading to the longest undefended border in the world. And the second agreement in 1818 set the western border between the U.S. and Canada at the 49th parallel, from the Lake of the Woods to the Rockies. Well, that's it for this episode in this mini-series on the War of 1812. Please stay tuned for the next episode, episode 34, where we look into the rebellions of 1837 in both Upper and Lower Canada. Now remember, at any time, feel free to leave comments or questions below, and I'll do my best to respond to them all. And please, be a true Canadian and be polite. And if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and give it a thumbs up. And hit the bell if you'd like to be notified of any new content. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.